So if you just listened to my last interview or podcast episode on sort of about the long-term process and interacting with this for sort of getting involved straight away and what you can do to make the most of the Elite Athlete Blueprint and all of the insights that we're going to give you as coaches. And you probably would have realised, like, okay, awesome, I can start right here, I can work towards the optimal training schedule. Most of you are probably going to be doing the 5-day-a-week schedule as I outlined, with sort of 3-day strength and conditioning focus that are a bit more lighter on the skill sessions, and then 2 hard playing training days, and then ideally 2 rest days. In season, you might ramp it up to 3 games styles, which includes your practices, basketball-specific practices, and 1 day off. It's really important to have at least 1 day off in the week, but the crux of it is, like, you want to be sort of doing something to do with basketball every single day. And then I guess you might be asking, well, you're doing 5 days a week, how are you doing basketball every day? Well, on those other 2 days, you can either work on some really light micro skill stuff that's not going to put load through your joints. Like people would say, oh, I do dribbling every day. Well, for me, if I do dribbling every day, I find my forearms lose some of the power, and I'm not able to handle the ball as well. And it also just kind of drains my nervous system. But that's just me. Some people might be able to do it every day. But if you're kind of doing the 5 days on, 2 days off, you sort of rest on the weekends and really do not much physically, but you can watch a lot of film and learn a lot about the game. So if most players spent sort of an hour or 2 really breaking down the game, studying their game in relation to, there's tons of video breakdowns from guys like By Any Means Basketball. If you type in sort of anything to do with DJ Sackman, Tyler Ralph, they're all really, really good resources for understanding more about the game. And simply just watching basketball is massive for your development. Watching your own games is the best thing you can do. We're working with a few partners about getting our games filmed, but like on those 2 days where you're not playing, you still want to be involved with basketball. Mental practice, watching game film, understanding and breaking down the game, and applying it to your own game, and kind of replaying the movie in your head, working out the skills you need to work on. All that kind of stuff can be done. And that's if you're finding that you're doing the micro skill sessions and you're feeling a bit cooked. And you'll get that feeling yourself. Everyone's individual, everyone's different with it. Some players in America will train every day and they'll be fine, like Kobe Bryant trained every single day without fail for apparently at least 3 hours. So I certainly can't do that, and I would love to be able to get away with that much volume if it meant that I was able to play like Kobe Bryant, but that's not the reality of me at the moment. Maybe I'll adapt to that someday, but that's yet to be found out. But I don't want to put unrealistic expectations in anyone's head. I just want to sort of set the scene to say, look, when playing at a really base level, or when training at a base level, I should say, do something every single day. Get away with, you want to have at least, or try to have at least 1 or 2 recovery days in the week and see how you feel. But the more engaged with basketball you can be, and the more you can understand all of the elements that go into basketball success, the better off you'll be in the long term. Now, with all of that said, how and why are we putting so much material together? Why am I sitting here doing all these podcasts? Why is there, depending on the time that you're watching this, possibly hundreds, if not thousands of lectures? Why am I producing a podcast episode, multiple per week, depending on when you're checking it out and everything like that? And the short answer for that is, it's a never-ending journey. We don't have all the answers, and this is going to be a constant evolution. And I'm essentially making this for me when I was 13. For the 13-year-old me, the kid who wishes he had a resource that told him what he needed to do, and it was able to point him in the direction of the right things that he needed at the right time, and gave him a structure to work with so that he could achieve his dreams as becoming a professional basketball player, and playing for his country, and doing amazing things with basketball, playing in the Olympics, and really just achieving everything he could have achieved if he had have known the right things to get there and had the right mindset going into it. And so I'm making this for myself, for the younger me, because I know the problems that I faced, and they may be slightly different for some of you, but For most people going through their journey in life, and whether it's basketball or another sport, you're going to face a lot of the similar problems. And so forgive me if the examples are quite specific and they do not work for you. We can make it tailored towards your needs, and perhaps for some people it might not be relevant, but that's okay. At least I tried. At least I shared my insights and really tried to give back to the world. So with that said, that's why I'm sort of producing so much material, and why there is so much is because it's exactly what I would have wanted when I was of that age. If I just had something that was consistently being put out that I could listen to when I was on the bus on the way to school, or when I was driving to school when I was old enough, or I could show some things to my dad so that he could help me with my performance and skill development, and really the modules that we're going to produce, there's so many things we can produce for you guys, and the only way that we can provide things that you guys need is if you ask us questions and say, look, would you be able to produce some content on this, and ask me questions, and ask us all questions. We're going to get input from the other coaches, some of which have played in the international level, played in the 3-on-3 World Tour, played at college, been paid to play professionally. We're going to have access to some of the best athletes in the world on interviews down the line. We've got elite coaches at our fingertips, and so if you guys want an episode, let us know, and we will try our absolute best to make it happen. That's really the whole point of this. It's super exciting because no one's really, in my eyes, from what I've seen, no one's been able to collate something in such a way. I am fortunate enough to have gone through a lot of training in marketing and sales, and really understanding how business works and how to leverage online tools, and I've been fortunate to create some pretty special online courses, and so through my experience and knowledge of how to do those things, I'm creating this for everyone here, because it's something that I'm really, really passionate about. So once again, it is a passion project and something that I wish that I had when I was younger, and so that's why there's so much material. And you don't have to devour it all at once. You don't have to go through every single piece at once. I'd recommend that you start with sort of the key 10 or so lectures that really give you the right mindset and help you to frame everything that you're picking up, and get your schedule sorted so that at least you're sort of laying the foundations and you're doing the training that you need to do at the base level, which is basically just doing something every day and enjoying doing that thing every day and connecting with your game and your level, and engaging actively. And I guess the concept of the active mind, to quote the Deep Game, which we reference in this, Deep Game Basketball for reference, which is Taylor Allen, I believe his name is, but really awesome program that I couldn't endorse highly enough. At this stage I haven't actually gone through it, but I've just looked at a lot of their information that they put out, and it is gold, so I can only say that the program would be amazing. I do plan to go through it at some stage, but it's just a function of not quite having the time. But anyway, without getting too sidetracked, to quote the Deep Game, the concept of the active mind, which is just essentially making sure that you're thinking about what's being presented to you, listening to your coach, applying it to games, actively asking yourself, how can you get better? What are my weak points? What do I struggle with in games? I think when I was playing 5-on-5 at a young age, the biggest thing that I struggled with was I would go out and play, and then not play too well, but I wouldn't actually look back at my performance and say, okay, what do I need to work on to play better? There was a lot of things that I would need to do, but what would be the most important thing that would have a big impact on my game? And for most players, it's either shooting, so learning how to shoot the ball and just focusing a season on learning how to shoot it, or dribbling. And you can do those things congruently. There's no reason why you can't work on those things together. Shooting is one of those things that is inherently hard to do every single day, just because most people don't have a hoop at their house, but you don't have to get up 1,000 shots every day to be an elite shooter. You can do a lot of mental practice, and you can get into the gym. Obviously you're going to be better if you're getting up a lot of shots, but there is that point of diminishing returns. I don't know the answer as to what the point of diminishing returns is. If you do know an elite shooter, potentially ask them what they did to become an elite shooter, and that will give you a good insight into it. From my understanding of what it takes to become an elite shooter, it's simply consistency over a number of years of practicing, and trying to get up at least sort of 100 to 200 shots 5 days a week if you can, and mentally practicing your shot outside of that and understand how it should feel. But it also helps to work with a coach. Like some of the key points that I sort of focus on now is getting lower in my jump shot. A lot of players start up high. Once you've got the base fundamentals down, it's really learning to use your legs. And watch a lot of clips of elite shooters. Watch clips of Steph Curry, for example. Steph Curry is probably the best guy to watch shooting because his form is picture perfect. He'll shoot the ball, one motion, every single iota of force that's going into the ground through his legs is coming up in a nice smooth motion and going out through his arms. And that probably is the best shooter to study. Your mechanics might not look exactly like him as well. Mine certainly don't. But if you imagine that you're Steph Curry when you're shooting, that will help your shot go a long way towards developing, because we have a thing in our brains called mirror neurons, and just Google mirror neurons, or you can if you're really interested, I'll potentially do an episode on it. But I'm not an expert in these by any means, but I know enough about them to know that we have mirror neurons in our brain, and these mirror neurons work essentially like if we watch something. It's how humans evolved to learn skills. Like if you think about when we first evolved as sort of Neanderthals, we would have evolved with a very primitive set of movements and skills. And why do all humans walk the same? Why is certain styles of dance able to be replicated so well? There's such complex movements, and to describe those movements is it's ridiculous. Try and describe a basketball jump shot using anatomical terms. It sounds absolutely preposterous. And so there is a thing known as mirror neurons that exists within our brains, and it's what allows, and monkeys have it as well, it's what allows human beings to replicate skills and movements from other human beings. So that's how, when you listen to surfers particularly, and I mean basketballers, we'll talk about this, but the best basketball players and the best surfers and skaters, I think it's where I hear it the most, is they talk about progression. And when they were younger, they watched clips and film of other basketball players, other surfers and skaters actually doing things, and that's how they got better, because they watched what they were doing, and in their head it was sort of like starting to groove the motor patterns of what they needed to do, and then they get out the next day and they try it, and they start to refine that motor pattern. And so really everything is a function of our brain, and so when we're watching a clip of an elite shooter shoot, we're actually laying down some neural pathways for our brain to be able to really start to emulate that skill. And of course, you're not going to be elite at it if you don't practice. But I mean, there was one research study done where a group sort of practiced free throws. I think it was like 100 or 200 a day. And then another group mentally rehearsed practicing those free throws. And then another group did nothing. To keep in mind, these were sort of novice shooters, and we don't really know what it's like at elite level because it's really hard to measure. But when they tested them, those who simply just did the mental practice of the free throws actually shot or improved their shot to the level of 80% in comparison to the the shooters who actually practiced. So what that means is that the shooters who actually went out and practiced, they doubled the result that those who didn't practice at all got. So they made twice as many shots. I don't know the exact results, but essentially, like, this is the interpretation of it from what I recall. And you can look this study up as well. PJF, Paul Fabrice, talks about this as well. But they shot 53 throws. When they first tried, they made 25% or 25 shots. And then this is the group that actually practiced. They came out and they ended up making 30. What would it be? Half of 25, 12.5. They made. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, 37.5 shots. So they made 37.5 shots, those who actually shot it. But then those who just did the mental practice, they achieved an improvement of 80% versus the control group that didn't do any shooting. So they made 33 shots. So they improved their performance, or 33 or more, whatever. But the point is that the interpretation could be that you can achieve up to 80% of the result that you could achieve by just simply physically practicing with mental practice. And that can be done in a much more efficient manner. It can be done anywhere, anytime. Much better if you're meditating and you sort of feel it and you really feel like you're present. And you'll notice, because it's actually tiring when you do it. If you're practicing your jump shot or your form or your dribbling or watching a a game through your head, if you're really present and really focused, it's one of those things that you can't do for long because it's quite tiring to do. So you only need to do it for 5, 10, 15-minute spurts. I'm not an expert on this, but I'd be really interested to get some experts on this topic. But I mean, all you can do is try it out, and I know that it certainly helps me, and this is what the research indicates. But potentially, I feel like Kobe Bryant and guys like that would probably do it for a bit longer, up to 20 minutes maybe. But do how you feel is best with this kind of thing. And if you're practicing it sort of enough, you're gonna feel cognitively fatigued, and that's sort of that point of diminishing returns. When your performance starts to drop off, that's where you know you need to stop on anything. It's hard as a shooter because you can just want to try and shoot your way out of the form, but really the point of diminishing returns for any skill is about 25 to 30 minutes if you're practicing hard. So when you're shooting, you should change the type of shooting that you're doing. So a lot of shooters will do sort of 90-minute sessions where they're shooting 1,000 shots, but unless you're really just trying to groove a skill or get yourself out of a pattern, it's probably not going to be a reliable way to practice over the long term. And the elite shooters like Steph Curry, for example, he'll go out and shoot for sort of 5 to 15-minute periods on one particular type of shooting, take a break, and then come out and do some other shooting. And that's where it comes into like random versus blocked practice. And Steph will kind of shoot some more game-specific shots, and then he might shoot some standard shots to warm up and everything like that. But really, you got to know the point of diminishing returns, and as soon as your performance starts to decline and you start to feel that fatigue, it's time to take a break and come back next time. And there's no right answer for it, but a good rule of thumb is sort of less is more when it comes to a lot of training. And again, this depends on the age that you're at and how good you are at that skill. And it might sound like I'm kind of contradicting myself, but really with performance, there's so many individual levels to it, and something is a million times better than nothing. And you can't give a general answer because when you're an elite performer, the rules are completely different to when you're a novice performer. Elite athletes, they use a lot more energy to perform, and so they need more time to recover and they need more time to adapt. Whereas a novice can get benefits a lot more frequently, and some people have greater aerobic capacity so they can adapt more, whereas others don't, and all the rest like that. So without kind of yapping on too much, I kind of have gotten a little bit sidetracked here, but what I want to talk about and finish this little podcast off with is what this is all about and how I would use this. So there's thousands of lectures that are going to come out here, or hundreds of lectures, tons of podcast episodes, guests we're going to have. It's all going to be sort of structured in a way so that you can go through it sequentially based on key topics. So in terms of physical performance, or athletic success, I've kind of broken it down into sort of nutrition, physical preparation, tactical preparation, skill preparation, mindset, and we'll expand on those topics over time. In business, for those who are familiar with business, you've got sort of marketing, sales, finance, operations, people, product, and that's kind of where I got this idea of breaking things down into key categories. And really the best thing to do is go through it sequentially. If you are just starting out and you're not sure where to go, but otherwise find an area that you need to work on. Start with the basic 10 obviously, but otherwise find an area that you need to work on and just grab the lectures that really resonate with you. If you commit to sort of doing 10 minutes a day, then it might take you like a week to go through a couple of lectures, but in that week you've gotten 5% smarter. You've learned a bunch of concepts that are going to completely transform your training. And remember that while you're doing all of this, you've got the basics down. You're already doing the hardest 80%, which is actually getting the training in place, which is doing your 5 days a week and 2 training sessions and watching film and all that. You're already doing all that stuff. And then all you're doing is adding the icing to the cake that separates those who are playing at a high level and those who make the pros by sort of watching all of the lectures. And so really, there's tons of material out there, and it's all going to help you, provided you apply it. And we really want to make this an applied sort of concept and an applied training program. I just had to take a sip of water. But the reason why I put so much in is because when, how I want people to be able to use it is use it in your downtime. Schedule in some focus time to review it. I think everyone should get into the habit of spending at least 30 minutes of their day reviewing their day, reviewing what they learned, taking some notes, and picking some key concepts to move forward with. And that's a great habit that will serve you for the rest of your life, and a really powerful thing. And you don't just have to write it all down and sit down to do it. You can do it in the car, or you can do it when you're traveling home from work, or you can do it before bed, or you can do it when you go for a walk, or whatever. Just any time that you get in your downtime, make it work for you. Don't be chained to, I rarely get time to do that kind of stuff because I got other things I need to do. But when I get a minute to myself, when I'm in the car driving home, I'll review the day and check things out and see what needs to come ahead. And it can just be a mental rehearsal of that. And it kind of, I believe it goes into the mechanics of quantum physics where time and thought kind of create reality. But we talk about that a little bit later, and there's tons of material on that if you want to Google search that as well. But I really think it's important to sort of review everything that we've gone through in the day. But I think the best time where, if I was my 13-year-old self, I'm just going to use the example of me, what I used to do was I'd drive to school, and when I was going with Dad, I'd be listening to the radio. But if I was doing that now, when I was going to training, or if I had to travel a long distance to get to training, or whatever, what I would do is I would simply just know that I'm going to be chucking on this podcast. I'm going to be going into my Elite Athlete Blueprint program. I'm going to be picking a lecture. I'm going to listen to that audio, and I'm just going to chill out and listen to the soothing tones of the Sydney Supersonics, which is me right now. But I'm having a bit of a laugh there. But honestly, I think you're going to know that this is what you've got planned for that day. So you don't have to think about your basketball development. You don't have to think about your athletic preparation, and you can then take every single bit of information that you hear from a coach or from your friends or from someone that you check out on YouTube or whatever, and you have a place to layer it on. You have a framework to layer it. I'll cover off the concept of mental models, but essentially the way our brain works is that we have this framework of things that we have knowledge within, and then when we learn something new, we place that information on the knowledge tree that we've gained. But it has to be progressive like that. And you need some kind of framework to understand how everything fits. And that is what the aim of the Elite Athlete Blueprint is. And it's what most people miss when it comes to anything, really. If they hear some information, have you ever had a conversation with someone where they just talk right over your head? They'll be talking about stuff that you have no idea about. Say I was to talk about muscular anatomy and physiology. If I could have kind of said, the muscle spindles attached to the alpha motor neuron will allow you to contract more readily with the inhibition of the Golgi tendon organ when you're going through plyometrics, and what you're trying to do is actually work the stress reflex so that the stress shortening cycle comes through, and it allows you to inhibit the nervous system and the motor cortex so that you can actually produce more muscular force, because what the Golgi tendon organ seems to do is, according to the evidence, and in this evidence, I guess the studies, some of them are a little bit contentious because of the p-value being less than 0.05, but the research was randomized controlled, so it was sort of the gold standard of research. And what we found was that the Golgi tendon organ seems to inhibit the muscular force we're able to produce. So basically what we're saying is, when you produce a lot of muscular force, you've actually just turned down the inhibition that's on your body. Apologies to dive that deep into something there. I talked a little bit of smack in terms of the study randomized controlled stuff, but I just wanted to list off, and that's actually a true fact, is that most of elite human performance, and I talk about this in one of my articles, is actually just you've improved your body's ability to take the brakes off, I guess. Your body is constantly trying to protect itself, and by training and really optimizing your performance, you're just simply taking the brakes off your physiology that you've already been able to do, and that's where the concept of what's called limit strength comes into things. But anyway, without sort of going on too much of a tangent, that's what I'm talking about when people sort of talk over your head, and all that stuff I know because I've done a science degree at the University of Sydney. I spend my time doing sports science. I've read scientific papers. I work in a physio where we talk science all the time. And I know that information, and it sits within the knowledge framework that I've acquired over my 26 years of living. And 13 years of being very interested in science and reading a lot. But someone who's never studied science would have no idea what I'm talking about. But someone who has studied science, they would have the knowledge tree that I've got, and a similar knowledge tree, because they've been taught these things, and they'd be able to layer all the information that I just talked about onto the tree that they have, and it would make sense. And that's essentially how we learn things. And that, there's a fact for your knowledge tree. You can understand how you learn things. It's going to help you a lot at school. But without going too far down that road, really, the reason I wanted to talk about that is because this Elite Athlete Blueprint can be your knowledge tree for when you're learning about athletic performance and what you need to do to optimize your athletic performance and sporting career for the long haul. I think a really interesting example, actually, just to sort of talk about the importance of knowing a lot to do with your athletic career, is that dancers and ballerinas, I actually found this out a couple of years ago. Dancers and ballerinas, you can go to university and study dance. You can study ballet and study dance. And what they learn, it's essentially a science degree. They learn everything that I learned in a sports science degree, plus some more, the sports psychology and some really important things, because dancers know, the only thing that you're fighting against is yourself. And there's so much science that goes into optimizing human performance. And if you don't understand it, then unless you're an absolute freak, you're not going to get the most out of your body. And I'd actually say that even if you're an absolute freak, you're not going to get the most out of your body. You're just so much of a freak that you're better than everyone else. But I want to sort of take that idea that dancers, they go to university. They study a 4-year degree of anatomy and physiology to be able to understand what it takes to achieve elite human performance. And that's essentially what we're trying to do with this Elite Athlete Blueprint. It's give you the university degree needed to understand how to optimize your performance and athleticism. Be that through basketball, which is the example that we talk about, or whatever. And I really feel like once you understand that and you understand how to optimize your performance, it's ubiquitous for any area. It works for anything, whether you're trying to be the richest person in the world, or you're trying to be the coolest person or you're trying to be the best athlete in another sport. It doesn't matter. If you understand how to optimize yourself and your body and achieve the most out of it, which is, really the crux of human performance is that humans can adapt to anything, and provided we understand the demands of what are the activity that we're trying to get good at is, we'll be able to come up with a training plan to get better at it. You just have to take your time and set your realistic expectations. But essentially, we can adapt to anything. So that's where these principles come into play in the science. But if you're using this program and you're making the most of it, you'll be able to listen to this stuff and take it on board and sort of know that. And I guess going back to the example of me, you get the bus to and from school every day. There's an hour, 2 hours a day. So you can sit down on the bus in the morning, put the Elite Athlete Blueprint on, press play on a lecture, start to listen to it, take some notes, see how it fits into your training program, maybe do some research on some of the stuff we've talked about, read some things, learn about it, apply it, and then you move on to the next one. And each day you'll be able to get through a lecture like that. Then you can reflect sort of on the way home, and then you've got a really constructive activity to spend your time doing, and you'll probably find that you'll get better grades at school because you'll understand some of the scientific concepts you're learning in science, and you'll really sort of make the most of a bunch of different things. But what's really interesting about it all is that this is just here for you. It's here to support you doing whatever you're doing. So there's no pressure to get through it at any rapid pace, because there's no way to rush it. The best way to go through it is to make sure you comprehend it and understand it, and you've got the base training program from day one. You've set yourself up to be your own coach. You're the best coach that you'll ever have. You're kind of engaging with the base, doing something every day. You're able to have intelligent conversations with yourself and your coach, and progressively get better over time. And look, you're not going to be a good basketball player unless you put 10,000 hours into it. And once you understand that, and commit yourself for the next 10 years to your craft of basketball, then the sky's the limit, really. And we're going to be here to help you along the way. But if you choose not to use us, then fantastic. There's tons of great opportunities and great coaches, and you might not ever need a coach if you're an absolute freak. But coaches are there because they're able to provide insights as to where they've been before, and most coaches have sort of been where you want to go, and that's why they're a coach. So the way I would use this is I'd be stoked, because I'd know that every day I've got something that I can learn about performance and apply it to myself, and level up my training and understand, okay, I'm at this stage now, but where do I need to head, and create more realistic goals for myself, and understand the kind of player that I want to be, and understand how I can eat better, and how I can make my body look like I want it to look, and I can feel like I want to feel, and I can have the right mindset, and I can just create self-esteem and self-confidence and self-worth, and just really know that whatever I set my mind to, I'm able to do, and that's what this program is all about. It's about maximising your potential as a human being. It's about sort of understanding the distractions that exist in everyday life that take us away from our deepest and biggest desires, and understanding how to achieve things. And you got to realise the reality of that. Achievement isn't easy, but it can be very much worth it. And so by understanding it and engaging with it every single day, you'll be able to make the most of it. And that's really sort of my message with this whole Elite Athlete Blueprint, is just to be able to engage with it every day. This is what I wish I had. I'd be able to listen to these lectures, really dive deep. Whenever I got a chance, I'd be listening to the next one and being like, man, this is so cool. I've got a full plan, and I'm able to add things slowly to my program and apply it to my life. And then there's a concept called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and essentially, as human beings, and as any elite performer will tell you, we're a function of our habits, and our brain lays down these neurological sort of feedback loops, dopamine loops or whatever, and they're sort of based on habit. We're creatures of habit. We do things habitually, and a lot of our habits are based on initial beliefs that cause us to set those habits up. And I guess the Elite Athlete Blueprint is about teaching you all the habits that I think exist, and all the habits that I know, at least, and that we know, and we're constantly going to be adding more of them, to help you become an elite athlete. There are some things that are very good habits to have in place to be an elite athlete, such as training every day, and such as understanding that mental practice is a valuable part of the process, and such as ensuring that you eat enough protein. And there are some very bad habits, such as getting up in the morning and starting your day with a donut, or drinking too much coffee, or not getting enough sleep, or getting into drugs and alcohol. Those are all habits that will take you either closer towards your goal of becoming a professional basketball player, or further away. And so we're here to give you the good ones, good habits. And that's a good way to think of it. And that book, Atomic Habits, is a great one. James Clear's also got a great blog with tons of really interesting articles and material. Highly recommend you check him out. But essentially, let's give you some atomic habits to become an elite athlete. Let's give you some ways to fit this whole massive framework into your life, so that it works for you, so that you've got a training program, and so that every day that goes by you get 1% better, and we can help you become the next Olympian, the next professional basketball player to come out of Australia. And we can help Australia to get a gold medal in the Olympics and punch above our weight, and be the nation that really takes over the world for basketball, because we've got the potential to do it. We're losing our best athletes to Aussie rules football and other codes of sport, and so let's not do that. Let's help you to become an elite athlete through basketball and realise the positives that it has. And let's engage with this material every single day, make the most of it, enjoy it, take value out of it, learn from it, and put it into our downtime. Create an amazing habit to learn when you're doing stuff that you would otherwise be learning. If the school holidays are coming up, this is another thing. If I was 13 and school holidays were coming up, I know that I've got my school holidays sorted, because I'm going to be training every single day. I'm going to be getting in the gym. I'm going to be scheduling. It's off season. Well, no excuse not to be playing. Let's get the boys together and let's play a proper game. We can film that game, then I can watch my film. get the camera down, you can get an iPhone down there, you can get all that kind of stuff happening. There's no reason why you can't make these things happen with a little bit of effort and foresight and time spent on it. And then you know that, like, in your school holidays, you'll never be bored because you've got all this stuff that you need to learn, because that's going to help you move closer to your goal of becoming an elite athlete and becoming a professional basketball player. And look, if you don't want to become a professional basketball player, then great. You can still use this stuff to benefit your life. If you don't want to benefit your life, then great. You don't need to be listening. But I know everyone that's listening would definitely want to see the impacts on their lives. So that's kind of the message here. It's dragged on a little bit, but I just can't understate that. Like, I think now I'm never bored. I'm never ever bored in my life because I've got tons of material. Like, I'm always reading, I'm always learning, and I hope that I kind of build the habit of reading in those who are listening to this and those engaged with our Elite Athlete Blueprint. But I hope that I'm able to sort of create the habit of curiosity, as Kobe Bryant talks about as his number one habit that he wants to create in people. And that's why he started his company that won him the Oscar before he passed away. Rest in peace. But I hope I create that habit of curiosity, and we're never done learning. If you listen to a talk by Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger, like, Warren Buffett's reading sort of 8 hours a day, and he's one of the richest men in the world, and he still reads every single day and still is curious and still has tons of things he doesn't know about. And so I hope the Elite Athlete Blueprint sort of serves as a spark to help you to learn more things and engage more and be curious. And I'm never bored because I've got so much to learn, and I love learning, and I love engaging with this kind of stuff, and to teach is to learn again, and hope you learn this, then you're able to teach others, and really just give back to the world through it. So very, very long-winded message, but I'm super, super passionate about this, and I think if I can teach one person to be able to use their downtime and to never ever be bored again through this lecture and through this Elite Athlete Blueprint and through all the material that we're sharing here, then I'll be a very, very happy man. Remember to start at the basics, start with your program, start with the 5 days a week, 2 days of 2 days of playing, 5 days a week, 2 days off kind of thing, doing some micro skills and watching film, and 3 days a week of strength training. Look up skills drills if you're stuck there, and get stuck into your journey for the next 10 years to pros.